Hello, so in this video we're going to analyse the effect of a subsidy. What we see in our diagram here, first of all, at the top left, is we see the outward shift of the supply curve as a result of a subsidy. We need to explain why that change occurs and the impact that the subsidy has on the market equilibrium. So, first of all, the subsidy would reduce a firm's cost of production. And by reducing a firm's or business's cost of production, it means that firms would be more willing and able to sell at the given price and at time. So firms are more willing and able to sell at a given price and time. And as a result of this, there would be an increase in supply. And on our diagram, we see that increase in supply from S to S1. Okay. And we see an extension along the demand curve. And with that extension along the demand curve, as a result of the increase in supply, we see a fall in price from P to P1, and we see an increased quantity from Q to Q1. Okay, so if this was a particular exam question, maybe a 25-mark market failure based essay, our analysis wouldn't finish there. Our analysis then would focus upon how it would correct the market failure. So you would say, therefore, with the reduced price and the increased quantity, this would therefore maybe correct the under-consumption of a merit good and reduce the welfare loss to society because of that, as I said, the reduced price and the increased quantity, which we would have highlighted earlier on in our essay, was as that was the particular market failure that was occurring. Okay, let's have a look now at our bottom left diagram, which is the use of a subsidy with regards to positive externalities in production. So again, the same thing applies, that with the subsidy, it reduces a firm's cost of production, which I've just abbreviated to COP. And again, we'd explain that reduced cost of production means that firms are more willing and able to sell at the given price and time, and therefore we would see an increase in supply. And with regards to this, we go from MPC equals S to S plus the subsidy. And again, we see the extension along the demand curve. The demand equals marginal private benefit equals social benefit curve. We see that extension along there. We see the decrease in price from P to P2, getting closer to the social optimum price of P1. And we see an increase in quantity from Q to Q2. So that increase in quantity from Q to Q2, again getting closer to the social optimum quantity of Q1. And the other thing that we can comment on this particular diagram is that there would be a reduction in the welfare loss from area A, B, C to D, B, E. Okay, and obviously, again, as mentioned before, we would then want to link back to the market failure that we may have outlined at the beginning. So obviously, if we're using this diagram, we would have outlined that there were positive externalities in production when building a flood defence, for example. And we would explain that with regards to the reduction in price, the increased quantity, and the reduced welfare loss, we are going some way to correcting the market failure of underproduction with the things, the changes in the variables that I've just discussed. Okay, now moving on to our final diagram, which is at the top right, and this is looking at the use of a subsidy with regards to merit goods or goods that have or positive externalities in consumption. So again, the subsidy reduces the firm's cost of production, okay, and allowing them to become more willing and able to sell at a given price and time, and therefore there's an increase in supply of the particular good from S equals MPC equals MSC to S plus the subsidy. And again, we see the extension along the demand curve, movement along the MPB equals D curve. And with regards to this diagram, we see obviously a decrease in market price. The market price in this particular scenario would decrease. Market price P to P2 because the supply is equal to demand at point A, which is the price of P and the quantity Q. So the market price was originally P. With the outward shift of the supply curve and the movement down the demand curve, the extension on the demand curve, the new supply and demand is equal now at P2. We see an increased quantity Q to Q1, and as a result of operating that new quantity Q1, we would eliminate the welfare loss, and we would fully correct the market failure. Just an important thing to note here, that the size of the subsidy would be P1 minus P2. Size of subsidy would be P1 minus P2. The reason we know that is because that is the vertical distance between the supply curves, and therefore demonstrating the size of the subsidy. So P1 minus P2 would give us the size of the subsidy. But key thing here, the cost of productions are falling, the increase in supply, reducing the market price from P to P2, and increasing the quantity from Q to Q1. Remember that this P is the market price, because that is where demand is equal to supply at the free market equilibrium initially, but then with the implementation of the subsidy, the price then falls to P2, because obviously supply is now equal to demand at this point, and this would take us to our social optimum quantity of Q1 and eliminate the welfare loss. So key thing to remember here, it's an outward shift of the supply curve. The reason being the cost of production for firms will have fallen as a result of the subsidy, and the price therefore is going to fall and the quantity is going to increase. Remember to refer back to the market failure if this is a market failure 25 mark response, to explain how either underproduction or underconsumption is being dealt with as a result of the subsidy. Stay tuned and watch the next video with regards to evaluating the usefulness of a subsidy in correcting a market failure.